Senator Ted Cruz is our guest for the next 15 minutes. Senator ERCOT claims that we were 4 minutes and 37 seconds away from a statewide blackout that could have lasted months. How does this happen in Texas?
You know, Michael, that is a very good question, and one that state officials are going to have to dive deep into answering. I'm very glad that Governor Abbott has called on the state legislature to investigate why we saw these power outages last week, why the state of Texas had 4 million people in the face of these winter storms lose power, and the fact that ERCOT came that close to truly a catastrophic power failure. Their officials say if we had hit that point where supply and demand are so out of whack that it fries the system, that it could have been weeks or even months with the state of Texas having no power, and that would have been unimaginable for the state, and we need to make sure that we do not get close to that line ever again. We also need to make sure that the grid is prepared for weather emergencies. We're going to see weather emergencies in the future, and the grid needs to be there to provide power for Texans.
Is this a personnel question in terms of the wrong people were on ERCOT? We had 5 resignations. Is it a policy question? Was this a state question or a federal question? Is it a money question? To the sense that we can already tell where the glaring weaknesses are, what is that?
You know, it may be some of all of that. And my view is that we ought to look at the facts and the evidence. You know, almost immediately when this power outage occurred, people fell back into familiar political talking points. And so a lot of folks on the right were saying it's the Green New Deal, it's all wind and solar, that's obviously the problem. A lot of folks on the left were saying it has nothing to do with wind and solar, they're wonderful, and it's all coal and natural gas, and they're bad. You know, I think we ought to actually look at the evidence of what occurred. What do we know right now? We know that in a given year, typically the electricity capacity generated from wind in Texas is about 25% of the state's capacity. Texas leads the nation in wind generation. We're number one. We generate more wind than California, more wind than New York. Even with all the Democratic politicians spewing hot air there, we still generate more wind. One of the problems with wind, however, is that it's variable. It's not consistent. Sometimes the wind blows, sometimes it doesn't. And so the 25% output generally occurs in the summer. That's a good thing because we have hot summers in Texas. In the winter, typically wind production drops to about 10 to 12%, although it varies day by day and hour by hour. When the first storm hit Monday night, the wind production statewide dropped to 2%. And that was a major contributing factor to the blackouts, is that the wind turbines froze, and so that was obviously a problem. The solar generation we had, that output dropped precipitously as well. You had snow and ice on the solar panels. You had dense cloud cover, and so that they were generating very little electricity. But we also had problems with natural gas and coal. With natural gas, the electricity generating plants, parts of them froze. The wellhead froze. With coal, you had the same thing where the plants, parts of them froze. And so on all of our energy sources, we saw a meaningful reduction in energy. Nuclear, there was one plant that went down for a period of time, but nuclear stayed pretty constant. The others did not. I think we need to have a careful examination of, all right, what caused each of these power sources to go down? How impactful was that? And what are the steps that can be taken to prevent against it? And I don't think we should be unlimited in what we're willing to spend. I think Texans want to see a reasonable cost-benefit analysis. One of the reasons people come to Texas is because the cost of living is low here, that you can live a good life, that your utility bills are low, that you can provide for your kids and live well. And we don't want to see, and we're seeing right now, a lot of lefties that are pushing for federalize the grid, have the feds take over, and then turn it into essentially California and have Texans pay California energy bills. I don't think that's what Texans want, but I do think we want affordable energy and we want reliable energy, and that really needs to be the test, that it's reliable and there in a time of crisis. Yeah, I got to tell you, Michael, I think a lot of Texans were angry and frankly embarrassed that the energy capital of the world we couldn't keep our lights on and our power on. That is completely unacceptable. And so I think it's going to be a process of examining the causes and then adopting the policies to make sure it doesn't happen again. You asked federal or state. In Texas, this is almost entirely a state-level function, and so it'll be the state legislature and ERCOT and the governor and lieutenant governor discussing what to do. I've been speaking with them and will continue doing so, but Texas administers its own grid, and so it'll be decisions of the state officials that implement these reforms.
If you had the last 2 weeks to do over again, would you go to Mexico?
Of course not. That was obviously a mistake. If nothing else, though, the late night comedians ought to send me a royalty check for their last week, because it seems to have employed every comedy writer in Hollywood.
But here, I have a different view than some other people. If you had stayed here, if you have your cell phone and your computer, I don't understand the difference. I'm not trying to defend you. I'm trying to tell you my position. I think a father should be able to take their family on a vacation, and as a senator, you're still working. You're not the governor.
Yeah, look, on substance, what you're saying is absolutely right. So what happened, when 4 million Texans lost their power, Heidi and I were among them. And so we lost power at our house for 2 days. We had no power, no heat. We lost our hot water, lost all of our water at some point. And so we're sitting there shivering with our girls who are 10 and 12, and they're cold. And they said, look, they got with some of their friends from school, and they said, look, let's get out of here. Let's go somewhere warm where there's power. And school was canceled, so their schedule was suddenly open. And, I'd been working, as you noted, on my phone, and that you can do anywhere. And so we checked, and the prices were relatively affordable, so we booked the trip and went. And, Heidi and I were trying to be good parents to the girls. And part of the reason I didn't think it through is for the last year, I've been working remotely on phone and email and Zoom during COVID, and you can certainly do that from anywhere, and it's better, frankly, to do it from a place that has power where you can plug things in. But we flew down there, and I understand the critics that I have to admit, I started having second thoughts pretty much the instant I sat on the plane and started heading out, because in a time of crisis, it's better to be there. Even if I don't know how to fix the power lines, I wasn't I wasn't able to get the grid up myself. I was talking to policymakers who were dealing with that. But I understand the optics, and the biggest reason it was a mistake, frankly, is that it gave ammunition to the knuckleheads who want to go after me and attack me. And look, humor is a potent tool, and so that was dumb on my part, but which is why I got on a plane the next day and came back. Was there less than 24 hours.
I will say, and I want to get to some of these other issues that are far more important, and I don't think this is important, but it's important to have people making public policy decisions who are in the process of raising a family, because you're closer to it and you understand it. But the toll it takes on a wife and daughters, and I'm not asking you to feel sorry for yourself, but I don't think people quite understand how difficult that is. And I will leave that there.
It is the worst part of the job by far. And it imposes a real cost on the family, and it's a price. It's Thursday morning, and I'm in D.C. I'm here alone. Heidi and the girls are back home in Houston. I cannot tell you how many softball games and basketball games I've missed because I work 2,000 miles away from my family, and it makes it a very hard thing being a dad to two young kids and being a husband. It's a real toll. And what's not fair on the kids is they didn't ask for it. I asked for it, so I'm not asking for sympathy. I made the choice to step forward and do this job, but it does put a real price on the family life. You and I have talked about that before, yep. And look, frankly, politics is so ugly right now. It's so nasty that, particularly after 4 years of Trump, the press they're mean and personal and weaponized. And again, I've got pretty thick skin. I don't care, but the kids aren't thrilled with it. I mean, they see the nasty memes and things like that, and a 12-year-old is not necessarily not thrilled to see those going around.
Sure. And it's tough. And senses of betrayal and other kids teasing, it's tough. I mean, I watched what Kellyanne Conway went through, and I just wanted to give the woman a hug. But I want to talk about some other things. Dismantling ICE. There is a story about the Biden administration, and the phrase is dismantle ICE. How concerned should we be as a border state?
So I think we should be very concerned. I am not certain that report is right. I've seen the report. It's early. But the person that they put in there, Alejandro Mayorkas, is extreme. And all of the early steps appear to be that the Biden administration is moving rapidly towards open borders. And, you look at the Biden immigration plan, which was put out, which is the most radical immigration plan any administration has ever proposed in history. They have proposed allowing every single person who was deported from this country for the last 4 years to come back. I mean, it is, and by the way, they don't make exceptions for criminals, for murderers, for rapists. I mean, it is utterly bizarre to have a federal administration refusing to enforce the law against violent criminals. And frankly, it makes our country more dangerous, and it makes Texas more dangerous. We are a nation of immigrants, and there are wonderful people who come here and come here legally. There's a right way to come. But today's Democratic Party has been radicalized where they're not even willing to enforce the law against violent criminals who are committing horrific crimes.
Senator?
Yeah.
HHS nominee Javier Becerra, nominated by the Biden administration in the middle of a pandemic. You made the case that this guy is unqualified. People criticized you for that. I think your reasons were sound. How concerned should we be if, in fact, this pandemic is bad as the Democrats have told us it is?
Well, it certainly illustrates the hypocrisy in political theater on the left. Joe Biden has said his top priority is defeating COVID. This pandemic has been serious. We just crossed the threshold of 500,000 deaths. We've had over 42,000 deaths just in the state of Texas. It is serious. We need to defeat it. HHS is on the front lines of defeating it. And this nominee, Javier Becerra, he's not a doctor. He's not a scientist. He has no experience in virology. He has no experience in pharmaceuticals. He has no experience in healthcare in any way, shape, or form. The guy's a trial lawyer. His only experience with healthcare is suing nuns. The reason he got appointed is because he's a left-wing activist. His entire career, he's been a hard left-wing activist. And, I got to admit, if a Republican president nominated someone with zero healthcare experience, zero pharmaceutical experience, to lead HHS, especially during a global pandemic, that Republican president would be laughed out of the room. And instead, the Democrats and the media are just circling the wagons around this guy because it's not actually about science. It's not about medicine. It's not about defeating the virus. It's about this is politics, and they're taking care of their political friends.
Corporate tax rate hike. You've spoken out against it. How much would this hurt America's economy?
Well, I think we're going to see taxes going up across the board. And it's one of the real consequences of a Democrat in the White House and a Democrat in both houses of Congress is that if they simply hold their votes in their party, they can raise taxes an unlimited amount without needing the vote of a single Republican. And I think we're going to see a massive tax increase. On the corporate side, we saw an incredible boom across this country in terms of job creation following the 2017 tax cut. The 2017 tax cut taxes for working families, for small businesses, for job creators, and we saw this renaissance of jobs. We saw manufacturing jobs coming back to America. The Democratic leadership wants to come in and slam that, and they're combining it So they want to raise taxes, and they also want to double the minimum wage. You've got a lot of small businesses that are barely hanging on, that are on the verge of bankruptcy. Look, you ran a small business for years, and I'm still grieving the Redneck Country Club. But doubling the minimum wage and raising taxes on job creators is going to result in millions of jobs being destroyed. The Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimated that just doubling the minimum wage, just that one proposal, which the Democrats are trying to do, will destroy 1.4 million jobs. And those are primarily low-income teenagers. Many of them are African American or Hispanic, and they just get fired. And the Democrats, these policies, I think, are going to hurt a lot of people. They're going to hurt a lot of Texans, and they're going to hurt a lot of people who are vulnerable. It's exactly the opposite of what we should be doing. We should be trying to help small businesses reopen their doors, hire people back, get the economy moving again. I think that's what Texans want. That's my priority. But it's not where the extreme left of the Democratic Party is, and that's who's driving the train right now.
Senator Ted Cruz, I promised I'd get you out at 20 past the hour. I appreciate the fact that you are representing our state in the United States Congress and doing a damn fine job doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. God bless. Stay safe.